welcome back to FHN. We're obviously standing in the bait lab as we try to do each and every week. So we're going to talk a little bit about kokanee fishing. Again, if you've been doing it and having success, great. You know, maybe hang in there and pay attention. You might learn something, or maybe you won't. But if you're just new to thinking about maybe going after kokanee, or have questions on what you should be using or how to rig and what do they really go after, I'm just going to walk you through the progression that I utilize pretty much each time I hit the water, especially early season when I haven't quite dialed in any particular fishery, whether it's here on the home lake in the backyard, up on American Lake, down there at Merwin, or anywhere else. Even if we go all the way to Flaming Gorge in Utah-Wyoming border, and all this will work, Lake Roosevelt. Those are all different fisheries that you need to put time on the water to dial in. Kokanee can be very fickle. You think you have them dialed in one day and you knock them out of the park. Next day you go out there, you can't get a bite. So looking at what we have here on the board to start off with. If you start off in the morning and you're in low light conditions, oftentimes we find as we progress through the season that we get on the water earlier and earlier. When it starts getting light at 4:30 in the morning, we're launching the boat at 4 a.m., minimal light on the water. I often find best success with lots of UV and or glow. Okay, can't go wrong there, and big flash. So what am I talking about, big flash? Well, we have a number of different types of dodgers we can utilize. Again, if you remember last week when we had Herzog in here, we were talking about different makeups of dodgers, single wave form, dual wave form, how much action that's going to put on your lure with the dual wave. Now, this is a nice, big, bright, nickel-plated dodger. It's dual wave. It's going to have a lot of action to it. Put some moon jelly tape on the back of that. And it's going to put off a lot of flash in low light conditions. That is UV moon jelly. It's capturing any light that penetrates through the water is going to reflect off of this. And that's what you need early morning like that. Indoor, you can also put some glow strips on here, which this one doesn't have, but that also works very well as an attractant in low light, okay? So we're talking bigger dodger, bigger flash, lots of UV, really draw and pull the light in that is minimal coming from the sky penetrating to the water. So what about lure presentation? So on the board here, I have a number of different size lures, and again, it's progressional. So down here at the bottom, I have a larger presentation, a nickel, larger blade with a UV skirt, double hook setup as I normally run on most of my rigs, okay? Now this leader is a little longer. This is about an 18 or so inch leader, simply because this big blade has a lot of thump, generates its own action by spinning and thumping through the water. The further away from your dodger that your presentation is, the less the dodger actually puts action onto your lure, okay? It will to a point, but the longer that leader is, the less action it's moving that presentation at the tail end. So if we shorten up that leader and it's closer to that dodger, it's going to get more swing and more wag. I also have rigged all these. You may think it's a little overkill, but 12-pound test 12-pound test fluorocarbon. Okay, let me clarify that. We use fluorocarbon just because it's a stiffer line. They can't see it, and that's one reason we go up 12-pound test, is because the stiffer the line, the better the action on the lure as it trails behind the dodger. If you use like a 6-pound monofilament, you're just not going to have the action on your lure that you really need. Okay, so beef it up a little bit. Not to mention, you're able to fish that lure time and time again without those small fish wearing out that leader, especially the material in between your hooks if you're using mono, not using braid. That's another topic for another day. As we progress through the morning, and depending on how the bite's going, now keep in mind, if you're fishing 2 or 3 rods, you have the option to put different presentation on each rod. So maybe on one rod, I go with big flash on my lure, lots of UV, lots of glow, really trying to entice them. The next one over, I might start, as I had mentioned last week, I always start with something gold, especially if I have the moon jelly on there. Okay, I will always start with gold, and believe it or not, in minimal light conditions, this one actually works and performs quite well. So that may be coupled with something like this, a squid body or a hoochie. This Ace High mini hoochie with a smile blade on there, okay? Again, it's a little bit shorter of a leader because that smile blade does not have as much action or thump as that nickel blade on there, okay? So because it doesn't put out as much vibration, doesn't have as much flash, we're gonna run that a little bit closer to our Dodger just to impart more action on the lure. So here we have a hoochie skirt with some flash and some crystal flash and whatnot in there to spice it up a little bit with some UV. Put a nice little YBC spin and glow on there. This also has UV on it. That imparts a little bit of action and vibration, which kokanee are drawn to vibration. So that one there will give you some vibration and some reflectiveness off of the UV. And again, it's a little bit of a shorter leader, about 12 inches. It imparts very little action on itself, so we want to keep it a little bit closer to the Dodger. As we progress even further into the morning and the daylight gets stronger, especially on full sun days, when that sun comes up, remember, kokanee have bigger eyes than, say, compared to trout. So as the light gets more intense, they're going to want to go a little bit deeper. And you'll start finding them, rely on your electronics to find out exactly where they're hovering in the water column and get your presentation down to them. Fish above them, not below them, because they don't look down. So as we get more light in the morning, and especially on sunny days, gold is your friend, okay? You can see a number of these. Here is a hammered blade with some UV, larger 6 mil beads, a little bit of flash, a little bit of crystal flash, a little bit of UV strands in there. We can even bring this down a little bit smaller as I get into my series of lures that more resemble Herzog's Rasticle, albeit it's a Rasticle with a mini LP shrimp overlay on the top of all that crystal flash and that flash boom, things like that. Put that mini UV squid over there. You're adding color, you're adding glow on the head, you're adding translucence, you're adding just a amazing amount of, like it says here on the pack, double glow plus the UV over the crystal flash, and those in combination put off a good amount of color and attractability. I've downsized though even more because we're getting further into the morning, so I got smaller beads. Of course, they all have UV, different color combinations to create contrast. Here on this one here, if you can see that, we got this pink with some orange, all UV, all reflective. I've used a black and glow little LP squid over the Flashaboo and material that I've tied into my hook. That black in contrast with this pink and orange does an amazing job as far as contrast, okay? This one here is a LP, that is a mini squid, that is a solid pink, tremendous UV and glow. It's a matter of creating any combination that you desire simply by mixing and matching as far as what you decide to put with lures. My main point here is that in the morning, low light condition, you're starting out a little bigger presentation, and if those are getting bit, you want to switch to a larger presentation. If you find that the bite has somewhat dropped off a little bit, you're going to work through your progression and start going smaller. Now, most of these are pink and orange because I have a lot of success utilizing pink and orange, albeit sometimes we put on some chartreuse or some green. It just depends on how the bite's going. If you completely go cold for a while, that's when everything comes out of the box and you're trying to figure out combinations that may work. We may end up going with some of these splatterback pink Dick Knight Dodgers. We may use the Rocky Mountain with all this splatter and all this UV on here. Tremendous colors and things that reflect and really draw them in. So it's to your benefit to equip yourself with a number of different options relative to your Dodgers, sizes, and the type of flash and or UVs they put off. And then of course, building your lures in so that you have selection from larger to small. Sometimes they don't want anything but a little tiny smile blade and a couple beads. No flash, no crystal flash, no UV strands, no nothing. Couple red hooks and some bait, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But that's generally the progression. Start with big flash in the morning, and you work your way to smaller presentation. Unless you get your 5 or 10 or 20, depending where you're fishing. If you're getting your limits and they keep on biting, don't change a thing. Figure out what they want, switch all rods to that, and then when you get into schools, you're going to have multiples and triples and quads, depending on how many rods you're fishing. Once you get it dialed, they're going to respond. If you don't have the ability, time, or the willingness to tie your own stuff, let me just set this down real quick. A number of manufacturers out there have a ton of things that you can select from, okay? Rocky Mountain has a variety of different types of small squid bodies, all UV, and or some of them with glow, but in combination with small blades that have UV splatter, reflective on them, color combinations all over the map. Gives you a lot of options to choose from. Max Lure has been around forever. Their Cha-Cha squidders work extremely well. Some of their small shad blades actually work great for kokanee in tough conditions where they want some brighter stuff. Little wedding ring combination there, little chromes or golds with small hook presentation. Now these are single hooks, so you may want to tie an extra hook on there, but some of these combinations, if you don't have time to make them up yourself, work extremely well in tough conditions because you're going, again, down to smaller baits, smaller presentation, and sometimes that's all it takes is a change of your presentation color or size-wise, okay? Jeremy John with Kokanee Kid, he produces a ton of stuff. A lot of his smaller stuff is really intriguing. He has glow hooks, gold blades. He uses a lot of bead combinations with chromes and or nickel and of course gold. Synonymous with Kokanee fishermen. He's got these in here with UV and glow. So a lot of his stuff, the smaller profile stuff, you can't really find it anywhere else. And it works very well as you progress through your morning. Again, starting with some bigger things and then moving towards the smaller, pick up some of Jeremy's stuff because if you want that real small stuff, he's going to be the guy that can provide that for you. Jared Gibbons, who will be on later on the show, in his moneymaker stuff, his shaker wings are very productive, come in a variety of colors. They have flash, they have glow, they have thump. It's an offset wing that does a real nice job in the size of the wing being larger on one side than the other. It puts out a broken cadence that really provides a lot of thump and vibration that kokanee respond to, okay? Now looking at the top of this area here, I got a lot of kokanee lures and everything all over. I got these great big Dodgers on here. Now, I would never put this in line and troll this. This is something I would use for sockeye. I've added moon jelly strips on here to even give it more flash. But what I will do with these, because kokanee are responsive to activity that's going on, things putting off flash, things that draw them in. If you are able to equip your downrigger balls by simply hooking more flash in more of a ruckus underneath your boat, with these larger Dodgers and or flashers, you hook those to your downrigger balls and just drag them. Just let them flop around and reflect and create a lot of nuisance. That can grab their attention to bring them up to where they're going to come check out what's going on, and then shortly thereafter your presentation may go trolling by them and it's going to trigger a strike. So options for attractability, it's, you know, what isn't tried won't work, as our buddy Herzog often has said. And so if you aren't enticing them, if you don't have fish following your presentation, if you're not marking fish following underneath your boat, put stuff out there off of your downrigger balls to create more flash, more disturbance, more eye candy for them to be drawn in towards your presentation. Now above all that, slide this out of the way a little bit, we got to talk about bait. Kokanee are bait and scent junkies, okay? For me, I typically start out the year with my tray of goods. I use a lot of the Potski's corn, mostly because it works extremely well. It's pre-cooked and it's been jarred. It very seldom, if ever, goes bad, especially if you keep it refrigerated. So the fact that it's been pre-cooked, the bacteria has been cooked out of it. You don't have to worry about things molding and stuff like that. Now you can buy canned corn at the store, which a lot of you do, which is fine. It's soft. It lasts for a while after you've added oils and scents and things to it. I guarantee you that this corn, it stays on extremely well because it has been cooked and it's firmed up. And for me, it's as simple as taking Potski's Kokanee corn, the fire corn, and I add into that a variety of different oils from Mike's. I'm simply going to add scent combinations with color combinations, and there is a ton of options that we have. We have a variety of different colors of corn that you can use. Pinks work extremely well, natural color works well, yellow works as well. Probably my favorite go-tos. Once in a while I'll use the dark red, but more often than that I'm using the pinks and the natural. And scents that I like to use, tuna garlic for sure, and I can mix some of the tuna oil from Mike's and some of the garlic, and it makes a phenomenal combination. I can use, they make a kokanee scent, which is extremely sweet, almost smells like vanilla, but not quite. Extremely sweet, and there are times of the year that kokanee are drawn to more of a sweet odor than anything else, okay? So simply by taking the lid off and taking a bottle of that oil, dumping it in here till you fill it up, and then of course just let that sit in there for a while, turn the jar around a little bit. I keep these in the fridge. Once I've put the oil in there, I literally have taken jars of corn, put in different scents of oil, mixed and matched, made different combinations, and I have fished maybe the jars down to halfway. I have left them in my refrigerator for an entire year, came out the next season and fished them, and guess what? They worked absolutely fine. No mold, no funk, no decline in the way the scent smelled. It was as strong as it was the day I put it in there because it's in the refrigerator in my bait fridge at about 34 degrees. Just above freezing because you don't want to freeze it, but it's kept extremely cold so it doesn't allow bacteria and things to grow in there. And it actually works, and it works very well. You can maintain or sustain your bait in your fridge for a long time if you keep it cold enough. This corn has been pre-cooked. It's tough, it stays on, it's durable. Kokanee can strike it. It doesn't knock it off the hook like some of the softer corns you buy in the grocery store. And simply by adding oils into each jar, you are creating bait combinations, and it's pretty much endless. I would suggest trying some of Mike's crayfish oil. Is a great scent for kokanee, believe it or not. Herring works extremely well. Combination of tuna garlic, as we mentioned, is a definite go-to. Shrimp anise or shrimp anise is another deadly combination that works. And don't be afraid to try the earthworm. Believe it or not, they make an earthworm scent. It looks like the sand shrimp oil. It's just as yellow. It looks identical. But you pop the lid on that thing and it smells like earthworm. And yes, kokanee love night crawlers and earthworms. If you've never used worms for kokanee, you'll be surprised. So, scent up your corn. The color works for attractability. The scent definitely works. Something else you want to do too. In my bait box for kokanee, I keep a couple different flavors of paste. And the reason I do that is because I will take some of that out of the jar and I will put it on these larger dodgers. I dropped all my smaller, here's one. So if I'm fishing this Wonder Bread dodger, I always, and I mean always, will put some scent on the back of this dodger. I will take some extra tuna oil on top of that gel, and I will put a little bit of that on there and smear that on, and I leave that scent running on those dodgers all day long, okay? Kokanee, again, are scent junkies. If I can put extra scent in the water that's going to draw them in, I put them on the dodger. People say, well, you don't want to do that because it's tough to get off. It's not that tough to get off. You wipe it off when you're done. You take them into the house when you're done for the day, wash them in hot, soapy water, let them dry, take care of your gear. It works great. If you're not putting scent on your dodgers, you're missing out on an opportunity to put extra scent in the water and draw those kokanee in. So just a few things that I have done over the last several years as I've been in pursuit of kokanee. And when I go trying different areas that I haven't fished before, there's a progression I go through depending on what time of day I'm starting and, locating fish and all those things that you want to do to find them. And then if you're on top of them with your electronics and you know there's kokanee around and they should be snapping, if you're not quite getting them, you got to go in progression. You got to change your dodger. You got to change your presentation with your lure. You got to change your bait and scents and see which ones they want. Fish different options on your different rods. Dial them in, figure out which one they want, and hopefully you'll find some success. Hopefully that kind of dials you in a little bit to go out, entices you to maybe start building some of your own lures and or go purchase some of the stuff of the manufacturers we mentioned here today. Pick up some of your Potski corn and your Mike's oil. Make it easy on yourself as far as baiting and scenting. Trust me, you're going to thank me for that one later. Okay, enough about kokanee. We're going to jump out for a quick break. We come back, we're going to be back in the main studio. We're going to get Tommy Donlin on the phone. If you haven't followed him on Facebook, you're missing out. He is a very successful outdoorsman, both in the realm of saltwater fishing, out in the blue water, chasing large fish, and of course, he's a freak about his hunting as of the last few years. And we're going to delve into a little bit conversation on fitness levels for hunting and big game pursuit later on in the year. So we'll do all that and more. We come back right here on FHN.